My name is Annette Connolly, and I am 36 years old. Last June, at my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary, my cousin Paige handed out 23andMe kits as party favors. 200 guests, for generations of Canellis, crowded into the St. Andrew's Community Hall, eating pot roast and clinking glasses. Everyone laughed about it. My grandmother Martha smiled and slid the box beneath her chair. My mother said the kits were ridiculous. My father headed to the bar. 11 weeks later, the results shattered 3 marriages, rewrote 2 inheritance papers, and exposed that I had a full biological sister nobody in my family had mentioned for 39 years. But the DNA results were only the beginning. What my grandmother pulled from her jewelry box, what she had hidden inside since 1985, that was the part that made the entire family stop breathing. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories. This channel shares stories of quiet resilience, women who faced betrayal, created boundaries, and walked away on their own terms. If this is your first time here, leave a comment and make sure to subscribe. The Canellis are a Columbus, Ohio family, 4 generations deep, with most of us still living within 40 minutes of each other. My grandfather Earl built a hardware store on Route 9 in 1967. My grandmother Martha managed the books and managed the family, and nobody ever confused which role she took more seriously. I grew up as the only child of Robert and Linda Connolly. Dad took over the store after Grandpa's stroke. Mom stayed home and stayed close to Martha. And me, I became the family's accountant before I even earned a degree. I handled Grandpa Earl's taxes when I was 22, filed Medicare paperwork for both grandparents at 25, set up the trust fund spreadsheet at 28. By 30, I managed insurance claims, prescription reimbursements, and 3 separate property tax filings. I did it because nobody else would, because I was good with numbers, and because I believed being useful meant being valued. It didn't. At family gatherings, my mother introduced my cousins by their accomplishments. Paige was the social media manager. Dean Jr. was finishing law school. Katie had just gotten engaged. For me, it was always, and Annette's here too. I never pushed back. I had my husband Mark, our daughter Lily, and a senior accountant position at a regional firm paying $95,000 a year. I convinced myself the family dynamic didn't matter. But I noticed things. I always had. The way I looked different from everyone. Same jaw as my father, they said. But the height, the cheekbones, the slightly crooked smile. Nobody could explain those. Lily inherited them too. Mark once joked that half my genes came from a stranger. He had no idea how close he was. Martha Connolly never asked for opinions. She delivered them. Where Thanksgiving would be held, who sat beside whom, which cousins were allowed to bring partners, and which were not. Every decision flowed through Martha. She was 79 years old and moved through a room like a woman who had never once heard the word no. She kept a jewelry box on the mantel in her living room. Mahogany, brass latch chipped at one corner where Uncle Dean had knocked it over in 1993. She'd owned it since before I was born. When I was 7, I asked what was inside. Old things, she said. Nothing for little girls. I never asked again. Nobody did. The box remained on that mantel year after year, closed and latched, and Martha glanced at it sometimes the way you glance at a door you wish you had locked more carefully. My mother, Linda, was Martha's most obedient soldier. She sat where Martha pointed, cooked what Martha requested, answered the phone on the first ring whenever Martha's number appeared, even at 11 at night, even on Christmas morning. My father once told me Linda had been that way long before they married. Your mother respects her, he said. I think the word he meant was afraid. Grandpa Earl was different. Quiet after his stroke 3 years ago, confined to a wheelchair, usually parked near the edge of the room while Martha held court. He didn't speak much anymore, but sometimes he looked at me. Long, steady looks with an expression I could never fully read. Part sadness, part apology. I used to think he was simply tired. I was wrong about that too. The anniversary party was Martha's production. She chose the venue, the caterer, the centerpieces, the seating chart. 200 guests in the community hall at St. Andrew's. White tablecloths, a cake shaped like a church, a microphone at the head table that Martha kept within arm's reach all evening. Mark and I arrived early to help set up. Lily wore a yellow dress and immediately found the dessert table. Mark carried folding chairs. I organized the gift table because that's what I do. I organized things. Guests poured in. Aunts and uncles and cousins I hadn't seen in years. Extended Canellas from Indiana and Kentucky, friends of my grandparents who smelled like aftershave and called me sweetheart and asked whether I was married yet, despite me being married for 8 years. Martha sat at the head table in a cream-colored blazer, Earl beside her in his wheelchair. She gave a speech about 60 years of marriage. About loyalty. About family being the one thing that lasts. People applauded. Earl said nothing. At 8:15, Paige stood up. She was 31, bright-eyed, energetic, and loved a dramatic gesture. I got everyone a party favor, she announced. She pointed toward the small boxes on every table. I opened mine. A 23andMe kit. Thought it would be fun, Paige said into the microphone. Find out if we're really all Canellas. The room laughed. Most people tucked the kits into purses and jacket pockets. Martha smiled at Paige, but for 1 second, only one, her hand tightened around the armrest of her chair. I noticed. Nobody else did. At the time, I didn't think it meant anything. 11 weeks later, on a Tuesday night in September, I opened my results. Lily was asleep. Mark was watching baseball in the living room. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of tea that had gone cold before I remembered it existed. The ancestry composition was ordinary. Mostly Northern European, some German, a trace of Scandinavian. Standard Connolly. I scrolled past it. Then I opened the DNA Relatives tab. The first match was Mark. Expected. Second was a cousin, probably. Third was another distant relative I didn't recognize. Fourth was a match labeled full sibling. The name read Leonard Briggs. I stared at the screen. Refreshed the page. The match remained. Full sibling. 50% shared DNA. Not half. Full. I had never heard the name Leonard Briggs. I was an only child. I had always been an only child. My mother told me that when I was 8 years old, sitting on her lap and asking why I didn't have a brother or sister. God only gave us you, sweetheart, she said. I sat in that kitchen for 2 hours. The baseball game ended. Mark came in to say goodnight. I closed the laptop and told him I'd be upstairs soon. I didn't go up. I opened the laptop again and stared at Leonard Briggs' profile. The photo was blurry. No bio. No shared connections except me. A full biological sister living somewhere in Ohio, judging by the profile settings. A person who shared my parents. My DNA. My bloodline. And in 36 years, not one person in my family had ever spoken her name. I did not sleep that night. The next morning, I did not call my mother. I know that sounds strange. Most people would pick up the phone, demand answers, scream or cry, or beg for an explanation. But I've spent 14 years auditing financial statements. I know what happens when you alert the client before reviewing the books. The numbers change. The stories shift. The evidence disappears. So instead of calling Linda, I called a forensic genealogist. Her name was Dr. Marilyn Cho. She worked from a small office near the university, and her fee was $3,200 for a full investigation. Birth records, hospital files, cross-reference DNA databases, court filings if applicable. I paid with a credit card and asked for the fastest turnaround possible. She said 4 to 6 weeks. I gave her everything. My 23andMe data. Leonard Briggs profile match. My parents' full names. My date of birth. My birthplace. She took notes without expression. What are you expecting to find? She asked. The truth, I said. Whatever that is. That afternoon my mother called. Her voice was casual, breezy. Did you ever do that DNA thing? Those kits Paige gave out are so silly, aren't they? I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, then brought it back. Haven't gotten around to it, I said. Good, Linda replied. Honestly, those things cause more trouble than they're worth. She laughed. I did not. After we hung up, I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office building and typed a note on my phone. One line. Mom called. Probing. She knows the DNA kits are a risk. I locked the phone and drove home. 4 to 6 weeks. The first marriage collapsed 3 weeks after the party. Aunt Carol posted in the family group chat at 9 in the morning on a Thursday. Dean has some explaining to do. Then she left the chat. Nobody heard from her for 4 days. Uncle Dean's DNA results had matched with a 22-year-old woman in Cincinnati. His daughter, born from an affair he had with a coworker in 2002. He had known about the child and quietly paid support for years. Carol never knew. She filed for divorce the following Monday. The second fracture came from Paige. She called me on a Saturday, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "My dad," she said. "The DNA says the percentages are wrong. Uncle Robert is more closely related to me than my own father." I sat on the edge of my bed and listened. Paige's mother, Aunt Tina, had apparently had an affair with my father's brother sometime around 1994. Paige's biological father was not the man who raised her. Marriage number 2. Splitting at the seams. Martha called an emergency family meeting the following Sunday. "Annette," she said. "Robert and Linda. Dean if he'd come." "Everyone." I went. Martha stood at the head of the table with her reading glasses on and her jaw set. "These DNA companies sell lies," she said. "Delete your accounts, all of you. No good comes from digging." I said nothing. I watched. I noticed the jewelry box on the mantel behind her. Same place as always. And I noticed Martha glance toward it when she said, "These tests ruin families." She was not wrong about that. But the tests did not create the things they uncovered. The tests simply turned on the lights. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Mark and told him everything. The full sibling match. Leonard Briggs. The forensic genealogist. The $3,200. Mark is a patient man, but he set his coffee down hard enough to spill. "A sister," he said. "A full sister? That's what the DNA says." He stayed quiet for a long time. Then, "What about the family? Who else knows?" "Nobody. And I'm keeping it that way until I have the full picture." After he went to bed, I pulled out Grandpa Earl's trust document. I had a copy because I was the one who organized it, filed it, scanned it, and emailed it to the attorney. The trust distributed assets equally among direct line descendants. If Leonard Briggs was a Connolly by blood, if she was my parents' child, she was a direct line descendant. She had a legal claim to the trust. Then I remembered Great-Aunt Phyllis. She died in 2019 and left her estate to the oldest grandchild in the Connolly line. That was supposed to be me. I was born in 1989. But if Leonard was born before me, and everything pointed to it, she was the oldest grandchild. The estate was worth $47,000. I closed the trust document and stared at the ceiling. This was not only a family secret. This was a financial secret. Martha had hidden a grandchild, hidden an heir, and rearranged the money around the gap like a bookkeeper smoothing out a ledger. I had seen that trick 100 times in audit rooms. Mark had said it plainly. Your grandmother knew. Your mom knew. Your dad knew. And they let you grow up believing you were alone. I didn't sleep well that week either. I stared at that trust document for a long time that night. The numbers were right there. Neat columns. Exact figures. Just the way I had always organized them. But now the columns meant something different. If you are following this story and wondering what that Polaroid has to do with everything, stay with me. We are not there yet. 4 weeks later, Dr. Cho called me into her office. She had a manila folder on her desk, and she did not waste time on small talk. I've confirmed the match, she said. Leonard Briggs. Born March 14, 1985. St. Catherine's Hospital, Columbus. She slid the folder toward me. Inside was a photocopy of a birth certificate. The original. Unsealed through a court petition she had filed on my behalf. Mother. Linda Connolly. Father. Robert Connolly. I read the names twice. 3 times. They did not change. This wasn't a standard adoption, Dr. Cho said. There's no agency record, no home study, no formal legal proceeding. Just a handwritten note in the hospital file signed by your grandmother. She turned to the next page. A yellowed sheet of paper, photocopied with Martha's handwriting I would recognize anywhere, dated March 15, 1985. 1 day after the birth. The note was brief. It authorized the release of infant female Connolly to Harold and June Briggs of Dayton, Ohio. No lawyer. No court. No social worker. My grandmother had signed away her own grandchild one day after she was born. There's more, Dr. Cho said. She paused in a way that told me the next part would be worse. The hospital intake form lists 2 infants, not 1. I looked up. Your mother gave birth to twin girls, she said. I sat in that chair for a long time after she spoke. The office was silent. The clock on the wall clicked through 30 seconds. Then a minute. Dr. Cho waited. Lena was not only my sister. She was my twin. Dr. Cho had traced the records back further than I expected. In 1984, Grandpa Earl owed the Briggs family $14,000. A gambling debt. Earl had been betting on horse races since the 1970s, and by the mid-80s, his debts had outrun his hardware store income by a wide margin. Harold Briggs, a contractor living in Dayton, held the largest note. Harold and his wife, June, wanted children. They had tried for years. They could not conceive. Martha's solution arrived in the form of her daughter-in-law's pregnancy. Linda was 20 years old, newly married to Robert, and expecting her first child. When the ultrasound showed twins, Martha saw an opportunity. The arrangement was never written into a contract. There were no lawyers, no courts, no adoption agencies. According to the hospital file note and several corroborating records Dr. Cho had uncovered, Martha proposed that Linda give one of the twins to the Briggs family. In exchange, Harold would erase the $14,000 debt. Technically, Dr. Cho said, no money changed hands, but the debt was canceled the week after Lena was born. I sat in the parking lot of her office building for 40 minutes after I left. Engine off. Hands on the steering wheel. Staring at the dashboard. $14,000. In 1985, that was a lot of money. In 2025, it was a used car, a semester at community college, a kitchen remodel. That was what my sister was worth to them. My grandmother traded a baby to settle a gambling debt. My mother allowed it. My father was in the hospital room when both of us were born, and he watched one of us get carried away. I drove home under the speed limit because my hands would not stop shaking. I went to my mother's house the next afternoon. I did not call ahead. Linda was in the kitchen wiping down the counter. She looked surprised to see me but smiled. Annette, want some coffee? Sure, I said. I sat at the table while she poured. I had not prepared a speech. I only needed to see her face when she answered. Mom, I said, were you ever pregnant before me? The mug in her hand stopped halfway to the counter. 3 seconds of silence. The kitchen faucet dripped twice. What kind of question is that? She asked. A simple one. No. She set the mug down and looked me directly in the eye. You were my first. You know that. I watched my mother lie to my face without blinking. 39 years of practice had made her smooth. The words came out the same way they always had. Warm. Measured. Just enough hurt in her voice to make me feel guilty for asking. I didn't push. I finished my coffee, thanked her, and left. In the car, I opened my phone and typed a note. Mom lied directly. Looked me in the eye. No hesitation. I sat there for a while thinking about a memory I had never been able to shake. I was 8 years old, sitting on Linda's lap in the rocking chair in our living room. I had asked why I didn't have brothers or sisters. All my friends at school had siblings. I wanted one. She smoothed my hair and said, God only gave us you, sweetheart. I believed her then. I believed her for 28 more years after that. I saved the note and drove home. 2 days later, I visited my father. Robert was in the garage pretending to organize tools. He did this when he was anxious. Sorted wrenches by size. Lined up drill bits. Wiped down things that were already clean. I had seen him do it before family holidays, before doctor appointments, before anything he didn't want to face. Hey, Dad. He looked up. Hey, kiddo. What brings you out? I leaned against the workbench and made small talk. The weather. Lily's preschool. Then casually. You know those DNA kits Paige gave out. Mark and I finally looked at our results. His hand stopped midway on a socket wrench. Those things are garbage, he said. Your grandmother's right. I hadn't mentioned Grandma. Silence. He set the wrench down and picked up another one. I just mean in general. Everyone knows those companies make mistakes. I watched his hand tremble around the steel. Sure, Dad, I said. Probably nothing. I left without pressing further. I didn't need a confession. The socket wrench had already given me one. At home, I opened the folder on my laptop. I had labeled it Audit. Inside were subfolders. DNA results. Forensic genealogist reports. Hospital records. And a spreadsheet I'd started 3 weeks earlier. Column A, family member. Column B, do they know about Leonard? Column C, evidence. Martha, confirmed. Hospital note signed in her handwriting. Linda, confirmed. Lied directly when asked. Robert, confirmed. Deflected before the question was fully formed. 3 people. 3 decades. 1 secret. I closed the laptop and went upstairs to watch Lily sleep. She had her thumb in her mouth and her blanket twisted around her legs. 4 years old. The same age I was when I stopped asking about siblings. Paige called me the following Thursday. She had confirmed what the DNA suggested. Uncle Dean was not her biological father. Aunt Tina had an affair with a family friend in 1994, and Paige was the result. Her parents were still technically married, but Tina had moved into her sister's house and wasn't returning Dean's calls. My whole identity is a lie, Paige said. I know the feeling, I said. There was a pause. Then Paige said something that changed the entire shape of the situation. The estate lawyer called Dad yesterday about Great Aunt Phyllis's will. I sat up straighter. What about it? The will says oldest grandchild in the Connolly line. With all these DNA results showing up, the executor wants to review the family tree before distributing anything. He's asking everyone to submit documentation. Great Aunt Phyllis had died in 2019. Her estate was worth $47,000. That money had been sitting in probate while the family argued over tax implications. My specialty. Ironically. Paige, I said, there's something I need to tell you. I told her about Leonard, the DNA match, the forensic genealogist, the birth certificate, the hospital intake form with 2 names on it, the gambling debt, the arrangement. Paige stayed quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. She's your twin, she finally asked. Yes. And if she was born in 1985 before you, before me, before everyone, she's the oldest grandchild. Another silence. Then Paige said the only thing that mattered. I'm in. Whatever you need. She didn't ask why I hadn't told the family yet. She didn't suggest I talk to Martha or Linda. She simply lined up beside me and stayed there. Dr. Cho delivered the final report package the following Monday. She asked me to come in person. The folder was thicker this time. She opened it to a photocopied page and turned it toward me. This is the hospital intake form from St. Catherine's. March 14, 1985. The form was typed with handwritten additions in blue ink. At the top, patient name, Linda Connolly. Admission time, 14:22. Delivery method, vaginal. Below that, 2 entries. Baby girl Connolly A, 7 pounds 2 ounces. Apgar 8/9. Healthy. Baby girl Connolly B, 6 pounds 9 ounces. Apgar 7/9. Healthy. Same mother. Same father. Same delivery room. Same night. At the bottom, in a nurse's handwriting. Mother distressed. Grandmother present. Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. I read it 3 times. Removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. I looked at Dr. Cho. She looked back at me without expression. Your mother was 20 years old, she said. She gave birth to twins. 1 stayed. 1 was taken. The grandmother was the one who signed the release. I held the photocopy with both hands. The paper was warm from the printer. The handwriting was neat. Professional. A nurse doing her job. Documenting what she saw. Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. 11:47. After visiting hours. After the hallways emptied. After anyone who might have asked questions had gone home. They waited until the hospital was quiet. And then they carried my sister out. I folded the report, slipped it into my bag, thanked Dr. Cho, walked to my car, and sat there for 20 minutes with the engine off. Then I drove home. I pulled into the garage and didn't get out. The dashboard clock changed from 5:12 to 5:13. Mark's car was parked in the other space. I could hear Lily through the wall. She was watching a cartoon, something with singing animals. The bass vibrated softly through the drywall. I called Mark from the car. "I need to tell you something," I said. He came out to the garage, opened the passenger door, and sat down. I told him about the hospital form. About baby girl Connolly A and baby girl Connolly B. About the nurse's note mentioning 1147. About the grandmother who signed the release. And the 20-year-old mother who let it happen. Mark stayed quiet for a long time. "A twin," he finally said. "Yes. And she's alive. She lives in Dayton. She's a nurse. I found her on LinkedIn." He turned toward me. "You found her? Leonard Briggs. Registered nurse. St. Vincent's Hospital. 90 miles from here." I had opened her profile the night I received Dr. Cho's first report. The photo was clear on LinkedIn. Professional headshot. Navy blue scrubs. Name tag. And I had seen my own face staring back at me. Same cheekbones. Same slightly crooked smile. Same habit of tilting the head just a fraction to the left. I cried then for the first time since all of this began. Not because I was sad, though I was. Because I was furious. Because my mother looked at me every day and never once said, "You have a twin sister." Because my grandmother kept a photograph in a locked jewelry box. Both of us. The night we were born. And looked at it whenever she wanted, while never saying a word. Mark held my hand. We sat in the garage until the cartoon ended. Word travels fast in a family that claims to keep its business private. The following week, Martha called another dinner. Mandatory. The topic, she said, was the trust situation, meaning Uncle Dean's divorce had raised questions about beneficiary status, and Martha wanted it settled on her terms. I went. Mark stayed home with Lily. I told him I needed to listen without distractions. Martha stood at the head of the dining room table. She wore her reading glasses and held a single sheet of paper, a letter from her lawyer. "I've retained counsel," she said. "The trust will be protected from any challenges arising from these DNA results, and I am asking." She paused. "No. I am telling everyone in this room to delete your genetic testing accounts and stop sharing our family's private information with outside parties." She looked directly at me when she said, "Outside parties." "Some of us," Martha continued, "have been making phone calls, contacting people who are not part of this family. That behavior ends tonight." Robert nodded from his seat. Linda stared down at her plate. Paige caught my eye across the table. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." Aunt Carol, who had come because Paige asked her personally, stood from the far end of the table. Dark circles under her eyes. Noticeably thinner since filing for divorce. "Maybe," Carol said, "if this family had fewer secrets, we wouldn't need strangers to tell us who we are." She walked out. The front door clicked shut behind her. Martha smoothed the paper in her hand. As I was saying, no more tests. No more calls. No more digging. I said nothing. I watched. I noticed the jewelry box on the mantel behind her. Closed. Latched. Not for long. Dr. Cho called me 2 days later. "I tried locating the original arrangement document from 1985, she said. "The handwritten note your grandmother signed at the hospital referenced a separate agreement. It should have been filed with the county clerk as an informal custody record." She paused. "Should have been. It was," she continued. "But someone retrieved it in 2008. I leaned against my kitchen counter. Who? The retrieval request was signed by Linda Connolly. I didn't speak for 10 seconds. The year Ancestry launched consumer DNA testing for the general public. The year the entire landscape of genetic privacy changed. 17 years before Paige handed out those kits at the anniversary party, my mother had walked into a county clerk's office and removed the one piece of paper connecting Leonard Briggs to the Connolly family. "She didn't just stay quiet," I said. "No," Dr. Cho replied. "She actively destroyed evidence of the arrangement." I hung up and called Paige. Told her what I'd learned. "Your mom destroyed the records?" Paige asked. "That's not just silence, Annette. That's planning." She was right. Linda had not simply gone along with Martha's secret out of fear or habit. She had taken preemptive action. She saw the future of DNA testing and moved to erase the paper trail before anyone could follow it. 17 years before that DNA kit appeared at the party, my mother was already covering her tracks. The forensic genealogist found the hospital records because they lived in a different system. Medical, not legal. Linda thought about the county clerk. She didn't think about the hospital. One missed file. That was the gap in the ledger. And I had found it. I wrote the letter 6 times before sending it. The first version was too emotional. The second was too clinical. The third sounded like a legal brief. The fourth was so cautious it said almost nothing. The fifth was too long. The sixth version was 1 page. My name. My contact information. A printout of the 23andMe match showing 50% shared DNA. And 3 sentences. I believe we are sisters. I have documentation confirming this. I would like to talk whenever you are ready. I mailed it. Paper. Not email. A physical letter weighs more in your hands than a notification on a screen. I wanted her to hold it. 5 days passed. Nothing. On day 6, my phone rang. Unknown number. Dayton area code. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped it. "This is Lenner," said the voice on the other end. Calm. Careful. Like a nurse entering a room where someone might be hurt. "I got your letter," she said. I always knew something felt off. I just didn't know what. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about Harold and June Briggs. Good people, she said. They raised her with love. Sent her to nursing school. Came to every graduation. Harold died in 2018. June died in 2021. Lenner had tried finding her birth family at 25. Record sealed. She hired a private investigator at 30. He found nothing because by then Linda had already removed the county file. I gave up at 32, Lenner said. I figured they didn't want to be found. They didn't forget you, I said. They erased you. The line went quiet. Then Lenner said, June told me once when she was dying. She said, you were the best gift we ever received. I always wondered what she meant by gift. We agreed to meet Saturday. A diner in Springfield. Halfway between us. The diner was 45 miles from each of us. I picked it because it was neutral ground. But honestly, there was no neutral ground in any of this anymore. Not now. If this story is making you think about your own family, about the questions you never asked, keep watching because I still hadn't gotten to the Polaroid. The diner was called Parkview. It had been there since the 70s. Vinyl booths. Laminated menus. Coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since Tuesday. I arrived at 9:50, slid into a corner booth, wrapped both hands around a mug, and waited. At 10:03, the door opened. She was my height. Same dark blonde hair, though hers was longer. Same posture. Shoulders back. Chin level. The stance of a woman who spends 12 hours on her feet and has learned how to carry the weight. She wore a gray pullover and jeans, and scanned the room the way I scan a spreadsheet, quick, methodical, searching for the thing that doesn't fit. Then she saw me. And stopped. We stared at each other for 5 full seconds. She tucked her hair behind her left ear. I do that. I have always done that. Well, Lenner said, no DNA test needed for this one. We laughed. Then we cried. Then laughed again. The waitress brought extra napkins without being asked. She showed me photos on her phone. Her growing up in Dayton. Nursing school. Her apartment. Small, tidy, with plants on every windowsill. She was single. No children. I showed her a photo of Lily. She touched the screen with her fingertip. She has our nose, she said. We talked about the Briggs family. Harold had been a quiet man who built birdhouses in his garage. June made banana bread every Sunday. They loved Lenner completely and without hesitation. But they knew, Lenner said. They knew I had a twin. June told me I was adopted when I turned 18, but she said my birth parents were young and couldn't keep me. That was all. I reached across the table and held her hand. Her fingers were the same length as mine. Lenner told me her side of the story, and it was worse than I imagined. June Briggs had told her at 18 that she was adopted. The version she gave. Your birth parents were very young, and they couldn't take care of you. They wanted you to have a good life. Clean. Simple. A story shaped to protect everyone except the person it belonged to. At 25, Lenner tried to find her birth parents. She filed requests with the county. Records sealed. She contacted adoption registries. No matches. She hired a private investigator when she turned 30. He spent 2 months searching and found nothing because there was nothing left to find. Linda had walked into the county clerk's office in 2008 and removed the file. The one piece of paper that might have led Lenner home disappeared 4 years before she started looking. I gave up at 32, Lenner said. Figured maybe they had their reasons. Maybe they didn't want to know me. She had done an ancestry DNA test years earlier. No close matches appeared. The Canellis hadn't tested yet. It wasn't until Paige's party favors pushed 23 more kits into the family gene pool that the algorithm uncovered what Linda had tried to erase. She destroyed the records, I said. My mother. In 2008. She went to the county clerk and took the file. Lenner set her coffee down slowly. That's why the PI found nothing, she said. Yes. She knew I was looking. I don't know. But she knew someone might someday. Lenner stared out the window into the parking lot. A truck pulled in. A family stepped out. Mother. Father. 2 children. Same dark hair. They didn't forget you, I said. They erased you. She nodded once. Then said, then I guess we'd better unerase me. The gaslighting started the same week I met Lenner. Someone in the family had noticed my absences. My Tuesday appointments. The fact that I no longer answered the group chat within 5 minutes like I used to. Martha's network was efficient. She didn't need surveillance cameras. She had cousins who talked, aunts who listened, and a daughter-in-law who reported. My mother called first. Her voice thick with rehearsed grief. What are you doing to this family, Annette? Your grandmother is having chest pains because of the stress. The doctor said she needs calm. Then maybe she should try telling the truth, I said. Silence. I don't know what you mean, Linda replied. I let the silence sit. Then I said, okay, Mom, and hung up. My father texted the next day. You need to stop this investigation. You're going to destroy everything your grandparents built. I did not reply. A cousin I barely spoke to sent a message through the group chat. Annette, maybe just let sleeping dogs lie. We've all been through enough with this DNA stuff. I muted the chat. Paige checked in daily. She was the only family member who knew the full scope of what I'd uncovered. She never wavered. Mark kept things steady at home. Made dinner. Handled Lily's bedtime on the nights I worked late reviewing documents. He didn't push me to hurry. He didn't tell me to slow down. There's something that happens in an audit when you start finding real discrepancies. The client gets nervous. They start calling more often. Offering explanations you didn't ask for. Suggesting maybe the original numbers were fine after all. They get friendly. They get angry. They send lawyers. When the client panics, you are close to the discrepancy. Martha was panicking. The cease and desist letter arrived on a Tuesday. Addressed to me at home, which meant Martha had given her lawyer my address. The letter was 2 pages filled with phrases like, unauthorized dissemination of private medical information, and potential tortious interference with familial relations. I sat at the kitchen table and read it twice. Then I laughed. I showed it to Mark. She's threatening me with a cease and desist, I said. For talking to my own sister. Mark read it with his mouth slightly open. Can she actually do this? No. I called an estate attorney the next morning. A referral from a partner at my firm. She reviewed the letter in 10 minutes. This has no legal standing, she said. Your DNA results are your property. Your sister is a person, not protected information. And if there's an unnamed heir to a family trust, the trustee has a fiduciary obligation to include her. Your grandmother's lawyer should know that. I thanked her and hung up. Then I opened the folder on my laptop. The one labeled Audit, and saved a scan of the cease and desist inside it. One more piece. I did not fire back. I did not call Martha's lawyer. I did not post anything in the family group chat or tell anyone except Paige. I called Lenner instead. They sent a cease and desist, I told her. Lenner was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, what does that mean? It means they're scared. And when people send lawyers instead of apologies, it means they know they're wrong. My grandmother was 80 years old, and she was still trying to control the narrative. still issuing instructions from the head of the table, still locking the jewelry box. But the latch was already loose. I visited Grandpa Earl on a Wednesday afternoon. The home health aide let me in. Earl sat in his wheelchair by the window, blanket over his knees, watching birds at the feeder in the backyard. He was lucid. Some days he drifted, but today his eyes were sharp. I sat beside him. We stayed quiet for a while. The aide left to make tea. "Grandpa," I said, "I know about Leonard." He closed his eyes. His chin dropped toward his chest, and when he opened them again, they were wet. He did not deny it. He did not deflect. He did not reach for an excuse. "I know," he said, his voice thin, worn down by 3 years in that chair. "I know you know." "Who else knows?" I asked. "Martha. Your mother. Your father." Harold Briggs knew. "But he's gone." "June 2. That's everyone." He gave a small nod, then added, quieter, "Your grandmother keeps a picture in her box. The one on the mantel." I leaned in slightly. "A picture of what?" "Both of you. The night you were born. A nurse took it. Martha told her not to. She took it anyway. For a moment, I couldn't breathe." "She looks at it every night," Earl said. "Has for 39 years. Takes the box to bed. Opens it. Looks at you both. Then closes it." His hand trembled against the armrest. "I wanted to tell you," he said. "Every birthday. Every time you came for taxes or prescriptions. I wanted to tell you." He swallowed. "She said it would destroy the family." A pause. Outside, the birds scattered from the feeder. "Maybe it should have," he said. I held his hand until the aide returned with tea. Then I kissed his forehead and left. That evening, I called Leonard. "I want you at family dinner this Sunday," I said. "Everyone will be there." A long silence. "What if they deny it all?" "Then they can try." I took a breath. "I've got the hospital file, the forensic genealogist's report, and Grandpa just confirmed there's a photograph. A Polaroid. From the night we were born. Both of us." Leonard exhaled slowly. "Annette, are you sure about this?" "I've spent 36 years being sure about everyone else's paperwork. It's time I audited my own family." I asked Paige to ensure everyone came, to frame it as Martha's request, that she wanted to discuss the trust situation, which wasn't even a lie. Martha had been pushing for a family resolution, and Sunday dinner was always her stage. By Friday, Paige confirmed attendance. Martha, Earl, Robert, Linda, Aunt Carol, 3 cousins. Only Uncle Dean declined mid-divorce, staying in a temporary apartment across town. Saturday night, I prepared everything. The 23andMe report, the forensic genealogist's summary, the hospital intake form, the photocopy with the line, "Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request." I circled it in red ink. I wasn't planning to steal the Polaroid. I was planning to ask Martha to show it, there, in front of everyone. Mark watched from the bed as I laid everything out. What if she refuses? Then I ask her why she has a photo of 2 newborns in a locked box that she looks at every night. He didn't argue. I didn't sleep. Not really. Lily crawled into bed at 3 a.m. I held her close and thought about the twin who didn't get that night. Sunday. Martha's house. I arrived 15 minutes early. The house smelled exactly the same. Hot roast. Murphy's oil soap. Lavender sachets tucked into drawers like hidden rules. Mark dropped me off and took Lily for ice cream. He said he'd bring her back later. Martha was in the kitchen directing Linda's placement of dinner rolls. Robert stood at the bar cart, pouring bourbon he didn't need. Aunt Carol arrived at 5:15, quiet and tight-faced. 3 cousins trickled in over the next 20 minutes. Paige came last, 6 minutes late, hair still damp. She caught my eye. I gave a small nod. She returned it. Earl sat at the end of the table in his wheelchair. When I entered, he looked at me with something new. Not confusion. Not fatigue. Resignation. He knew. Martha took her seat at the head of the table. "Everyone sit. I have matters to address regarding the trust." I sat. Set my bag beside my chair. Inside it, the folder. My phone in my pocket. Leonard's number already open. One message away. She was parked 2 blocks away. Engine running. Waiting. Martha said grace. She thanked God for 60 years of marriage, for endurance, for strength through trials. Everyone bowed their heads. I didn't. The jewelry box sat on the mantel behind her. Same place. Same chipped corner. Same brass latch. It had been there my entire life. Christmas after Christmas. Birthday after birthday. I had looked at it 1,000 times, never knowing what was inside. Tonight I did. Martha cleared her throat and stood. She held a sheet of paper, notes or a script. With her, there was rarely a difference. This family has been damaged, she said. By these DNA tests. By gossip. By people who cannot leave well enough alone. Her eyes sharpened. Carol and Dean's marriage. Ruined. Tina and Gary struggling. All because of a party game. She paused. Perfect timing. 60 years of controlling rooms had made her precise. I've spoken to our attorney. The trust will be protected. No challenges will be accepted based on results from a spit-in-a-tube website. She folded the paper. And I am telling, not asking, everyone at this table to delete their accounts, destroy any printouts, and stop discussing our family genetics with outsiders. Her gaze landed on me. Some of us have been contacting people who have no business knowing our affairs. That ends tonight. Robert nodded. Linda pressed her lips together. The cousins shifted. I set my fork down. You're right, Grandma, I said. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. She hadn't expected agreement. Some of us have been keeping things from the family, I continued. And you're right. That does need to end tonight. Silence changed shape in the room. Not dinner silence. Something sharper. Martha's fingers flattened against the tablecloth. I reached beside my chair and pulled out the folder. Plain manila. Unmarked. I placed it on the table between my plate and the water glass. I have something to share, I said. If that's all right. Martha didn't answer. But she didn't stop me either. I opened the folder. Only the refrigerator hummed. 3 months ago, I said, I got my DNA results. I found a full sibling match. I placed the first document down. Her name is Leonard Briggs. The 23andMe report. 50% shared DNA. Full sibling. Not half. Not cousin. Full. Linda's fork hit her plate. She didn't look at it. I placed the second document. Forensic genealogist report. Leonard Briggs. Born March 14th, 1985. St. Catherine's Hospital, Columbus. Birth certificate copy. Mother, Linda Connolly. Father, Robert Connolly. Linda stood. What are you doing? Sit down, Mom. She sat. I placed the third document. This is the hospital intake form. It lists 2 infants. I read the lines slowly, clearly, like an audit, so no one could miss a word. Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. No one moved. Robert's hand froze around his glass. Carol's mouth was slightly open. Paige was staring at Martha. Martha finally spoke. Where did you get that? I met her eyes. County records. Hospital archives. June 2. That's everyone. He nodded once. Then added, your grandmother keeps a picture in that box. The one on the mantel. I leaned forward. A picture of what? Both of you. The night you were born. A nurse took it. Martha told her not to. She took it anyway. I couldn't breathe for a second. She looks at it every night, Earl said quietly. Has for 39 years. Takes the box to bed. Opens it. Looks. Then closes it. His hand trembled on the armrest. I wanted to tell you, he said. Every birthday. Every time you came for taxes or prescriptions. I wanted to tell you. He swallowed hard. She said it would destroy the family. A pause. The birds outside scattered from the feeder. Maybe it should have, he said. I held his hand until the aide returned with tea. Then I kissed his forehead and left. I called Leonard that evening. I want you at Sunday dinner, I said. Everyone will be there. Silence stretched. What if they deny everything? Let them try. I took a breath. I have the hospital file. The forensic genealogist report. And Grandpa confirmed there's a photograph. A Polaroid. From the night we were born. Both of us. Leonard exhaled slowly. Annette, are you sure? I've spent 36 years trusting everyone else's paperwork. It's time I audited my own family. I asked Paige to make sure everyone attended. Frame it as Martha's request. A discussion about the trust. Which technically was true. Martha always used Sunday dinner as her courtroom. By Friday, Paige confirmed. Martha, Earl, Robert, Linda, and Carol. 3 cousins. Only Uncle Dean refused, mid-divorce, staying across town. Saturday night, I prepared everything. The 23andMe report. The forensic genealogist findings. The hospital intake form. And that line highlighted. Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. I circled it in red. I wasn't planning to steal the Polaroid. I was planning to make Martha show it. In front of everyone. Mark watched as I laid it all out. What if she refuses? Then I ask her why she keeps a photo of 2 newborns in a locked box and looks at it every night. He didn't argue. I didn't sleep. Lily crawled into bed at 3 a.m. I held her and thought about the twin who didn't get that night. Sunday. Martha's house. I arrived 15 minutes early. Same smell as always. Hot roast. Murphy's oil soap. Lavender in drawers like hidden rules. Mark took Lily for ice cream. Martha was already in control of the kitchen, directing Linda's placement of dinner rolls. Robert stood by the bar cart, pouring bourbon out of habit. Aunt Carol arrived at 5:15, tense and quiet. Cousins followed in waves. Paige came last, 6 minutes late, hair still damp. She met my eyes. I nodded. She did too. Earl sat at the end of the table. When I walked in, he looked at me with something new. Not confusion. Not fatigue. Resignation. He knew. Martha took the head seat. Everyone sit. We will address the trust matter. I sat. Bag at my feet. Folder inside. Phone in my pocket. Leonard's number already open. 1 text away. She was parked 2 blocks away. Engine running. Waiting. Martha said grace. She thanked God for endurance, for marriage, for survival. Everyone bowed their heads. I didn't. The jewelry box sat on the mantel behind her. Same spot. Same chip in the corner. Same brass latch. It had been there my entire life. I had never known it held the truth. Tonight I did. Martha stood with her paper. Notes. Script. Control. This family has been damaged, she said. By DNA tests. By gossip. By people who refuse to leave things alone. Her voice sharpened. Carol and Dean. Ruined. Tina and Gary. Strained. All because of a party game. She paused. Perfect timing. I've spoken with the attorney. The trust is protected. No challenges based on those spit-in-a-tube results. She folded the page. And I am instructing, not asking, everyone here to delete accounts, destroy printouts, and stop discussing family matters with outsiders. Her eyes landed on me. Some of us have been making calls. A pause. That ends tonight. Robert nodded. Linda stared down. The room shifted. I set my fork down. You're right, Grandma, I said. Her eyes flicked up. Surprised. Some of us have been keeping secrets, I continued. And that ends tonight. Silence changed. It tightened. I reached down and pulled the folder from my bag. Plain. Manila. I placed it on the table, between dinner rolls and water glass. If it's all right, I said, I'd like to share something. Martha didn't answer. So I opened it. Only the fridge hummed. 3 months ago, I got my DNA results, I said. I found a full sibling match. I placed the first document. Her name is Leonard Briggs. 23andMe report. 50% shared DNA. Full sibling. Linda's fork clattered. I placed the second. Forensic genealogist report. Born March 14th, 1985. St. Catherine's Hospital. Birth certificate. Mother Linda Connolly. Father Robert Connolly. Linda stood. What are you doing? Sit down, Mom. She sat. I placed the third document. Hospital intake form. 2 infants. I read it slowly, like an audit. So every word landed. Second infant removed from room at 11:47 in the evening per family request. No one moved. Robert froze mid-grip on his glass. Carol's mouth opened. Paige stared at Martha. Martha finally spoke. "Where did you get that?" I met her eyes. "County records. Hospital archives." 3 months later, the dust is still settling. Some of it never will. The trustee reviewed everything. DNA evidence. Hospital records. Certified forensic genealogy report. Martha's lawyer tried to challenge it. It lasted one hearing. The judge ruled, Leonard Briggs is a direct line descendant with full beneficiary rights. She was added to the trust. No appeal followed. Great-Aunt Phyllis's estate was corrected too. $47,000 redirected to its rightful heir. Leonard used part of it to pay nursing school debt. Martha never spoke to us again. Same house. Same mantle. Same jewelry box. But the Polaroid is gone. And so is the illusion it protected. Linda called twice. First time she cried. Apologies. Youth. Pressure. Regret. I listened. Didn't forgive. Just listened. Second time, she blamed me for ruining Thanksgiving. I didn't answer again. Robert texted once. I wish I'd been braver. I wish you had too, I replied. We never spoke again. Dean moved to Florida. Divorce finalized. Paige is in therapy. She calls every week. We are closer now than we've ever been. Earl calls Leonard every Tuesday. He tells her everything that was taken from her. She records the calls, with his permission, so she can replay what she lost. Leonard and I meet every other Saturday. Same diner. Same booth. Same order. 2 coffees. 1 cream. 1 black. Grilled cheese for me. Turkey club for her. We split pie. We're learning each other in small, ordinary ways. She hates cilantro. So do I. She runs 5 Burmese chats on Sundays. I hate running. But I still show up in Dayton with a sign that says, Go Nori. She laughed so hard the first time she nearly stopped running. She met Lily in October. Lily stared at her for a full minute. Then said, You look like mommy but taller. Leonard knelt. That's because I had more time to grow. Now Lily calls her Aunt Nori. We fold towels the same way. We sleep on our left sides. We reach for salt before tasting. 39 years apart. Same patterns. Same hands. The Polaroid sits on my nightstand. 2 babies. 1 blanket. 1 truth. Leonard keeps her copy on her fridge beside Harold and June. We don't talk about Martha much. Or Linda. When we do, it's brief. Factual. Like weather. We talk about what comes next. Leonard might transfer to Columbus. I told her there's a guest room. The truth didn't break my family. The lies did. And the moment the truth arrived was the moment the silence finally ended. That is my story. 1 DNA test. 1 Polaroid. 39 years of silence gone. If this made you think about the questions you've been avoiding, maybe it's time to ask them. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. And I'll see you next time.